Funding for this video has been provided by the Department of Homeland Security under an award to the Series Center of Excellence at the University of Illinois and the iTech at Texas A&M University. Interoperability. What is it? What does it mean? While it can mean different things to different people, to the public safety first responder, it means the ability to obtain information required to accomplish their mission regardless of where this information is located, which jurisdiction owns the data, or what type of system it is housed upon. Interoperability is complex and difficult to accomplish, and it involves collaboration at several levels. These levels include sharing agreements, the ability to authenticate the person requesting the information, operational procedures being in place to support the sharing, and the ability of the information systems holding the data to be able to share it with systems of a different manufacturer.
The nation's capital has been involved in interoperability for more than 40 years. It goes back to January 13th, 1982. We house Congress and also the White House. So on a day-to-day basis, we have to move the President, Vice President, and First Lady. That's coordination among the district agencies, the United States Secret Service, U.S. Park Police, and some of the other federal agencies. No other jurisdiction has more National Special Security events, NSSEs, than the nation's capital. So we're constantly working with our federal partners, and when it's an NSSE, the United States Secret Service becomes in charge, and they mobilize 25 different subcommittees that have to be coordinated amongst the district agencies, federal partners, even the DoD gets involved with them, as well as the National Capital Region partners.
We had many conversations with a lot of federal agencies, and we determined that there was a gap in that there really is no standard conformant way to test NG911 products to a standard, and then develop a conformance testing program to ensure that the products that they are building are going to be interoperable in the field. DHS actually is legislatively mandated to ensure interoperability in emerging technologies and emergency communications. And the idea is that we are responsible for early testing of new technologies and ensuring that they're interoperable in support of public safety.
We're moving away from analog technology into a digital IP world. In that world, it creates a true system of systems through its networks. Over 5,600 911 centers across the nation to be able to work together and to transfer calls when they need to be transferred. We need our 911 systems to be interconnected. And for interconnection to work, we have to be using the same technology standards. So we have to be able to transfer a call from one 911 center to another by using standards.
In 2004, 2005, the first version of the 911 standards for next generation 911 were formally adopted and released. Even as early as 2005, 2006, we were approached to say there needs to be a certification program. We need to understand that the industry is really conforming with the standards that are out there. We started off with phase one. Phase one started around 3 to 4 years ago. And phase one was really just designed to put together an overall plan on how we would take the program forward. Following phase one, Homeland Security, working with the Department of Transportation 911 office, and subsequently then the U.S. Congress, we were able to secure funding for phases 2A and 2B to take us into the program that we have now, which was funded through the infrastructure legislation. That project is really to design, build, and test and implement the certification program itself.
The first thing we're going to do is develop the conformance testing harness or conformance testing system. That starts with an examination of the NextGen 911 standard. We go through the standard word by word, line by line, and look for every requirement. Then we move into a test purpose. A test purpose defines what you're going to test, and it's based on those requirements. Then we move into a test description. The test description defines how you're going to complete the test. In other words, what are the preconditions for the test? test? What's the stimulus for the environment? How are you going to inject a call to the device? Then you look at what's the response from the device and you declare a verdict, whether it's pass, fail, or undecided at that point. After we've completed the test description, then we move into the coding phase where we're using TTCN3 and other open source software to create the actual test case in software code. Then after that, we have to validate that the test case is correct, that it's testing what is in the standard, that it's not producing a false positive or a false negative. And we're going to do that using our lab that we previously built. Once the code has been validated, then we open it up on a public repository for anybody to look at, anyone from the general public. Now, another thing that's critical for next generation 911 systems is cybersecurity. We all know we're under attack from a variety of different sources, state actors, as well as people just trying to have some fun. And we don't want that to impact our 911 system. So we're conducting a cybersecurity assessment of not only each of the functional elements in NextGen 911, but also the procedures and processes and protocols in use. Now, of course, if you're going to have your product tested at a lab, or if you're a customer and you're going to trust that a lab did the right thing, you want to make sure that the lab is credible and repeatable. We are undergoing ISO accreditation for the ISO standard 17025, which applies to labs and verifies that the lab has a standard set of procedures, that everyone is trained to follow those procedures.
Texas A&M has been funded to not only obtain, but also document and share the process of ISO 17025 accreditation, including the cost involved of not only establishing the lab as an accredited testing laboratory for next generation 911 conformance and interoperability, but also the process and the cost of maintaining that accreditation. ISO 17025 is an international standard for reliability and validity of test results in a lab. The importance of having accreditation through ISO 17025 is that it builds trust between agencies who are purchasing equipment. It builds trust between the equipment and the capabilities that need to interoperate with each other and connect. And it builds trust between jurisdictions and agencies that need to interoperate and share data.
A couple of years ago, we had a summit where we started to really socialize the idea of the interoperability testing and conformance testing. And at that summit, we broke up into working groups and determined that there's probably 3 distinct lanes that need to be considered for anybody that's going to take on this interoperability testing. There's a governance structure that has to be formed. Obviously, the program needs to be funded. There's a technical group because this is extremely technical. At that summit, we decided, yeah, these are the 3 groups that need to be in place, and then we laid over top of them the Interoperability Task Force Steering Committee to sort of provide guidance to each of those groups. So if you're anywhere in that flow and you're not part of this effort yet and you want to join our task force, the door's open.
Being an association of vendors, a community that produces the solutions for public safety and PSAPs that use those services, it's very important to the vendors that they have basically a place to prove their capability and interoperability. A lot of the existing projects out there have met with challenges here and there, and those challenges can be reduced if they have, a program where they can prove their capability and certifications.
Interoperability in today's world is so essential, and it's no longer just an individual with an emergency. It may be a community with an emergency. The need for interoperability just increases substantially. We're in an environment where services are mobile in nature, people travel, communities are so tied together. If we don't have interoperability, we're stripping data, we're losing valuable information and valuable time in responding to an emergency.
From the end user perspective is that we have to share information and work together on different levels within my own agency, the Swedish Police Authority, within my country, the nation, but also within the Nordic countries, on a broader perspective, the European countries. We have to have common guidelines, standard operating procedures, standard operating guidelines, so that we can share this information cross-border within different countries, but also within our own nation.
The idea is to save lives. The military installations have responsibility for first response off the base. We want to be interoperable with our mission partners or the municipalities that reside outside of our fence line. And to do that, we need to use the same data standard, which is the NENA i3 data standard. Where's this interoperability? We need it. We need it badly.